And you are welcome to take it away.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining. My name is Greg Shriver. I am the product owner for the SYSVIEW product. And today, what we'd like to go through is how you can use SYSVIEW to to be able to manage large number of CICS regions, and how we can do that and create a dashboard for individual stakeholders in an organization. So what I'd like to do is just have everybody sort of step back and just take a breather for a second, and I just want to set this all up to give you an idea of why this is important for some customers. So our story starts out with Sherman, okay? And Sherman is a systems programmer. He is a subject matter expert. He works at an insurance company, right? And at this insurance company, they have, over 70 regions just on one LPAR, and they have over 500 CICS regions across the company. Now, Sherman knows CICS pretty well. He also knows a lot of the different stakeholder groups within his organization, and he also knows SYSVIEW pretty well. He's familiar with the 3270 interface, and he knows how to get around in SYSVIEW. So he's also the person who may, depending on the organization, but he's also the person in his organization who is responsible for installing and maintaining SYSVIEW, the product, and he's also responsible for, maintenance of CICS regions and dealing with, with application problems as they crop up. So, Sherman spends a lot of his day, he's on call, 47 out of 52 weeks a year, and on every weekend, and he feels like he's in constant firefighting mode. And one of the reasons for that is they have so many applications that are scattered across the company, and there are stakeholders for those applications, and when they run into a problem, they call Sherman. So Sherman spends an awful lot of his day doing just firefighting, right? And so what we want to do is we want to enable Sherman to possibly spend less time doing that firefighting so that he can get on to probably more important work. So let's go to our second person in the story, and our second person in the story is Sheila. So Sheila is a DevOps specialist for the quotes application at the insurance company. So she understands the application pretty well, and in this particular application, the mainframe is only part of that application, and certainly the mainframe is part of it, and there are pieces of that application that that run within CICS, of course, but there's many other pieces to the application end-to-end across the entire IT organization. So she's a very good generalist. she understands how the application is put together, and when there are actually application problems, she pretty much knows where to go. She knows the mainframe's part of it. But here's the thing. Sheila is less skilled and versed in CICS. She's also, she's what I would consider to be a sort of a casual SYSVIEW user. So when she gets, to a point where, let's say Sheila starts hearing from agents or other stakeholders in the organization that they are either unable to process quotes for prospective customers quickly, or, those quotes are just taking too long, or maybe the online quotes are suffering, she wants to know why. And the problem is, so Sheila knows the app, and she knows, where the different pieces of that app are, right? But when she gets into CICS or into the mainframe, her tool for that is pretty much SYSVIEW. And she is not as familiar with the 3270 interface as she is with the other interfaces in her organization. And she's also less familiar with CICS. So as soon as she smells or suspects that there might even be a problem in the mainframe in general or in CICS, she's going to call Sherman. So keep in mind that Sheila is, we call Sheila a persona, but Sheila is someone, you know, she is sort of dedicated to either one app or a group of applications or a line of business. And in the overall organization, there may be, you know, hundreds of Sheilas, and they're all, you know, kind of converging on Sherman, right? So one of the things we want to do is we want to be able to empower Sheila to be able to do some sort of self-service monitoring, maybe even some diagnosis, but let's just settle for some monitoring. And we want to sort of shield Sherman from being, you know, called all the time, because certainly Sherman can deal with those things, but, you know, Sherman is kind of one person or one group, and they have to service, you know, everyone in the organization. So the question is, how do we do that? So, and this is just sort of a piece of how we accomplish that overall goal, but since SysView is, you know, both Sherman and Sheila's tool, let's take a little look at SysView here for a second. So now I'm running on a test system, so I don't have 500 regions like Sherman does. But let's just for a second take a look. Oh, wrong command. I can't type. So I can go. Actually, let me go a different way. I'm going to go Menu CICS, because I'm Sherman and I'm a CICS person, right? So this gives me a good idea of like what all the commands within SysView are, or a hierarchical collection of menus to know what different things are available from a CICS perspective. But you'll notice here that the first option on this menu, on the primary CICS menu, is CICS List. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select that, and I can either take my mouse and I can double click on this down here to get that, or I can, you know, I can type in the number or type in the command. You can do whatever you want in SysView. But so now imagine here for a second that I have 500 regions here, right? Now I'm on a development system, so I don't have that many regions. So, but I'm asking you to just sort of imagine that when Sherman goes in and when Sheila goes in, you know, if she types in CICS List, she's presented with 500 regions. Now, she might know which of those regions actually apply to her application or pertain to her application, or then again, she might not. I would expect she probably knows that, but still trying to find 5 regions out of a list of 500 or even 5 regions out of a list of 70 can, you know, can be problematic for Sheila, particularly since she's, you know, not that savvy in 3270 or in SysView in general. And it also sort of presents a problem for Sherman as well, because remember, Sherman's problem isn't that he doesn't understand SysView or the interface. His problem is he's just got too many requests, and he's trying to service Sheila and Randy and Bob and everybody else from the organization because they may have things that they need to look at. So I guess so what we're trying to get at is, how can I limit the information, right, that is shown to these different stakeholders in the organization? So, and I'm going to do that with something called a CICS group. And here's how we do that. So let me show you how, first of all, how you specify a group, and I can create one. So I'm going to go to the groups command. And again, now the person actually doing this groups command, this is going to be Sherman. And Sherman is very, very familiar with SysView. He understands that, you know, where the groups command is. He understands that he can set these up. So if I go to the groups command, you'll notice, and this is a groups command across the entire SysView product, so it's not just for CICS. Groups can apply to just about everything, right? So, but I have this group type of CICSPLEX, and you'll notice that I have some groups here, right? Oh, and I already have, I wanted to show you how I can create that quote group, so let's do that. Let's delete that. So I just deleted the quote group, sorry about that. So what I want to do is I want to add a group. So Sheila is in charge of the quotes application. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say I want to add a CICSPLEX type group, and I want to call it quotes, right? And then I'm going to go in the description and say regions for quotes app. Okay, so now you notice that I now have an application or a group called quotes. But notice I don't have any members yet, right? So I'm going to go down here and overtype the add member. And again, this is Sherman that's doing that. He's going to set this up ahead of time for Sheila. So I'm going to say, all right, I only want to see, and I'll probably mess this up, SYSVIEW CICS. Okay, I'm going to add that as a member. And I'm also going to add SYSVIEW C670. Okay, voila. Now I have a group called quotes. Okay. Now, how do I leverage that group? Now, so just pretend I'm Sherman, right? So I now have that group, those groups. Go ahead and save them. So I have that group called quotes. Now, how do I use that? So let me go back to CICS List. And again, if I want to go back to CICS List, if I know the command, I can just type it in. The alternative is that I can go to menu CICS and start all over and then just double-click on CICS List, right? And remember, now that brings me up into, and I'm asking you to imagine this again, a list of 500 regions, right? I might not want that. So there is a way, of course, that you can do this with a command. I mean, if I type help in here, that links Sherman to the help for the CICS list command, and you'll notice that I can explicitly specify a group name here. So if I wanted to type in CICS list group quotes, I could do it. But it turns out there's an easier way. So that's what I really wanted to get to. So, and just to recap where we are here so far, we have Sherman, who is trying to set up a group for Sheila so that Sheila can only see the information that she really needs to see. And then I have Sheila, who is really responsible for one or maybe a small number of regions or a small subset of the regions out of the entire organization. We also have Sherman, who recognizes this, and he has set up a group called quotes for Sheila, right? So there it turns out that many of the commands within, many of the CICS commands within SYSVIEW are sensitive to a variable called CICS group. And so what I'm going to do here, and you wouldn't know this unless I told you, which is really sort of the purpose of this webcast, really. So Sherman may not have known this. So I can go ahead and I'm going to type in a modify CICS group. CICS group happens to be a profile variable, so that profile variable can be set, you know, in folks' user profile. So I'm going to say modify CICS group, and you'll notice that it brings up and it pre-fills a command. It basically combines the query and the set. And it says, so it gives me the current value of CICS group in my profile, which is none. And it also pre-fills in the command for me so that I can overtype it. So I'm going to say quotes. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to enter that. Okay. Now, if I wanted to, and if I were actually Sheila, I would probably do a profile save here. But rather than do that, I'm just going to show you what now that does to the CICS list command. So I'm going to re-execute the CICS list command. Notice now that my CICS list command, instead of showing 500 regions, it now shows 2. It shows the 2 regions that were in my group, and you'll notice here that you'll see that in the info area where it says group quotes. So the CICS list command is smart enough to know that, hey, Greg has a value for the CICS group variable, and it's set to quotes. So I'm issuing a command right now. My command is sensitive to that particular variable, and many of the CICS commands are. There are about 70 of them that are sensitive to this groups. And I'll go through a list of the ones that I think are the more important here in a bit. And it's smart enough to say, okay, I'm gonna exploit that group, and I'm gonna only show, you know, what you want. Okay. So now imagine Sheila. So Sherman sets this up and says to Sheila, hey Sheila, you know, try this. Type in set CICS group quotes, and then type profile save. And then that's saved in her, that will be saved in her profile. And then she can go through many different commands like CICS List. So I can have CICS List here. I could do I could also type in and you can do this from the menu as well. I could go back to the menu and do C connections. So notice when I do C connections, that shows me, I mean, instead of for 500 regions, whether I'm connected or not to the things that I need to be connected to, instead of showing me 500 regions, here's another command that's sensitive to that CICS group, and it only shows me the 2 regions that I have set up for Sheila in that group. Okay, I could also do C alerts. That's another very, you know, very popular command. And now, see, I do have some alerts set, but are alerts that have happened, and alerts are basically when I have exceeded a threshold or the desired state that I have set up in states is not correct, is not desired, and then it trips an exception, and you'll get that here on the outstanding exceptions will be shown on C alerts. But again, C alerts is a command that is sensitive to that particular CICS group variable. Okay, so that hopefully, you know, now that gives Sheila a much smaller set of data to deal with. And so since if Sheila has that value set in her profile and she does menu CICS, many of the commands that you're going to find here, you know, and some of them aren't, but many of them are sensitive to that CICS group value, so it's only going to show the things that she's interested in. Now, the next question is sort of, there are 2 questions that, actually, let me pause for a second. Can we do questions, or is it possible to do that, or is everybody muted at this point?
Everybody's muted, but they can use the chat function or the Q&A box to ask any questions, and we can read the questions out loud.
Would you be able to do that then, if they do that? Because I can't see the chat box.
Yeah, sure. If anybody has a question, you're welcome to use the chat box on the screen or the Q&A, and we'll be happy to answer them. If you ask them at any time, I'll be sure to let Greg know.
Well, if I can answer it. If I can't, we'll certainly take a follow-up action item. But I just wanted to make sure that I just wanted to like take a little pause just to make sure that everybody's still tracking with me. Still have a couple of things that I'd like to show. So in absence of a question right now, I'll go ahead and do that. So knowing all this, this sort of begs a couple questions. And the first one is, you know, I'm Sheila, right? And unlike Sherman, I don't really know all of the SysView commands. I don't know which ones are relevant, maybe which ones aren't. And you know what? I might want to be able to see multiples of these things because it looks like I can get a lot of information from each command, but I kind of need, you know, information maybe from multiple commands to have sort of a complete picture. And so what we do for that is we have a dashboard. So Sherman can create a dashboard, right? And I'll show you how to do that. Let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to go, and now I'm switching to the Sherman persona. I certainly would not expect Sheila to know how to create a dashboard. Not in this case, right? I would expect Sherman to create the dashboard ahead of time for Sheila and other Sheilas. So let me go to a command called libs, and all that's going to do is get me to the list of libraries that this particular SysView is currently using. And I happen to know, and Sherman would know also, that dashboards are defined in ParmLib, and mine happens to be, you know, that data set right there. So I'm going to show you a dashboard that I've put together, and I'll show you, I mean, pretty much how easy it is. So I'm going to edit this, and the member happens to be dashboard, so I'm going to bring that up. And so here's a dashboard, and what I've done, right, is there's some stuff at the beginning. There is actually, if you go into SysView Sherman, if Sherman goes into SysView and types in help dashboard, there is a really nice write-up on how to do this, but it's really not that difficult. So you'll notice here that there's sort of a header area where we define the name of the CICS group dashboard, and it has to be in a member called dashboard or one that's read in from GSVX dash. But that's detail that we really don't need to get into, and again, Sherman can get that from the help dashboard topic that's available online in SysView. So I have my dashboard name here. So I have a dashboard called CICS Group, and I've given it a title called CICS Regions Overview Dashboard. And here's the secret sauce. So what I'm doing now is, and this is secret sauce that was developed by somebody here, by one of our engineers. And there's this initial rec section, and you'll notice it's got pluses after it so that it's a continuous statement. But in this initial rec statement, basically I'll summarize it. What he's doing is there's recs here that says this dashboard requires a parameter, and if you don't specify a parameter, it's going to come back and say, hey, dummy, you need to specify a CICS group, and then exit. And if you do specify a parm, it's going to assume that you have provided a group. And what we do is we set, and this is for Sherman, not Sheila, but we set a rec stem variable to say, hey, there are two lines in this, or there are two values in this rec stem variable. The first variable of this says set profile save command, and that's so it doesn't mess up her profile. And then the second one is another command that gets executed that says set space CICS group space, and then whatever parm you specified. So basically, for this instance of this dashboard, it's going to issue that particular command that I showed you before, and utilize that group that Sherman has set up. So when Sheila types in and does the dashboard, she could even have this set up as the initial command as she comes in to SysView when she logs into SysView. That's easy to set up in the parm file as well. But basically, this is as technical as I'm going to get in this webcast, because this just shows sort of the special sauce to basically provide a dashboard that is group sensitive, okay? Now let me page down just a little bit here. You'll see these definitions that say window 01 and window 02. Basically, this addresses the other issue of Sheila isn't that familiar with SysView, and she doesn't really know which command, and not right off the top of her head. She could probably go and dig and find them, but she doesn't know right off the top of her head which command she really needs, right, to be able to get an accurate picture of what, of what's going on with her application. So I've built a very, very simple dashboard that has basically a pane up top that does CICS List, and CICS List command provides a lot of summary information about those regions. And then we also define a window underneath that that's divided into two vertical panes. So basically what I'm doing is Sherman is going to combine the information with the overview, which is up here in overview on long real time, and I'll show you that when we demo the dashboard. And then, so she's got a pane up top that gives me something that's very system level, not application level, but basically how healthy is the system in which these CICS containers are hosted. And then this first window under that shows the list of CICS regions with the CICS List command that we've already seen. And then underneath that, there's another window that's divided in half horizontally, and one of them happens to be the C Connections command, which I already showed you, and then the C Alerts command. And all of these will be sensitive to this group that has been set here. And pretty much that's the code. That's it. That's all you have to do. So Sherman, would set this up in ParmLib for Sheila. Now let's actually look and see what that would look like. So I'm going to go back to my main menu here. And we'll just assume that Sheila starts here. So if Sheila comes into SysView and sets this, and comes into this panel, how she would get into the dashboard is this. And again, you could specify this as an initial command for her to execute when she comes in. So I'm going to say dash, and that's the dashboard command that says I want a dashboard. And then I'm going to specify the name of the dashboard, which is CICS group. And then I have to specify a group. Oh, and if I don't, well, let's just do that. So if I don't specify a group, it says, hey, dummy, CICS group required. Okay. So I'm going to say dash CICS group quotes. Okay. So now what we have is, and again, this is a simple sort of a template dashboard. Every application is different. Every application may have its own unique pain points. And, you know, Sheila can work with Sherman to say, you know, if Sherman knows what those pain points are, he could probably devise a pane here that has the right information to show her, you know, what's unique about that application. But again, this is a very simple dashboard that combines a bunch of information for Sheila, but only the information that she wants. So I've got an overview up here, and again, I mentioned, see that overview is from here to here. And that is going to show Sheila, you know, the overall sort of health of the system, right? And then underneath that, I have my CICS list, which again is showing me the list of regions, right? And notice I only have 2 regions that are associated with the quotes application, and it's sensitive to that CICS group value variable setting, and I only see those. And again, in my left-hand pane here, in my lower left, I have the C connections, again, with the CICS connections, again, limited to the regions in the quotes application group. And then on the right, I have all of the current CICS alerts, again, limited to only the regions that Sheila cares about, okay? And, you know, I know there's a lot of problems and warnings here. That's because we're on a development system and we've got lots of stuff firing all the time. You know, it's just because we think it's fun. And so let me give you sort of a tour of this dashboard now. So there are a lot of things here that I can do, and I can do point and shoot clicking, and I'm going to use my mouse, right? So let's say I want to go, let's say that the system CPU is high, and let's say this CP number were really high up here in the overview. I'm going to double click on that, right? And that is going to launch me into our activity command. And you'll notice that when I do that, it automatically sorts by descending by CPU. So I can see that, hey, there's a bunch of address spaces here that are using a truck ton of CPU. What's going on there? Now, let me show you another thing. So now this is something that's specific to me, and we could certainly set it up. Sherman could certainly set it up for Sheila. I'm going to right-click on my mouse, or I could also just PF3. When I right-click on my mouse, I go back to my dashboard. So using this dashboard, I mean, Sheila could lay in this dashboard or stay in this dashboard or leave it up, right? And I can click on different things. So I can click on that. I can click on, let's say there's ASID ready tasks. Let's say there were a bunch there. Sorry about that. Let's say there were a bunch of ready tasks representing, you know, unprocessed work. I can double-click on this and get a graph of what those work units that are available to be dispatched were a CPU or a process available. I can get that. Again, I can PF3, or for me, just right-click on my mouse to go back to the dashboard. Right. So there are things in here that I can click on a lot of these things, and it launches me where I want. Now, so that's at the system level. Let's go down to the region level. So let's say now, in my case, in Sheila's case right now, she has 2 regions that are an issue. And this row stat is sort of a summary indicator on the CICS list command. But I can click, you see this W01P01? I can go ahead and double click on that. Okay, and again, when I say double click, what I am meaning that is synonymous with I place my cursor there and then I hit enter. It just so happens that Sheila has her emulator set up that when she double left clicks on the mouse, it basically sends a position cursor and hit enter. So I'm going to double click. And that's going to launch me into the actual CICS list command. Notice that it's still using my group. It's in group quotes mode. And also notice these formats here. So one of the advantages by diving directly into the CICS list command is I can get it full screen, and also I can go around these different formats because there's a bunch of summary information that is presented on the CICS list command. So I can go, let's say I go to CPU. I'm going to double click on the CPU format, and it changes the format of my CICS list to show the CPU sort of relevant commands, right? And then I can go to DSA. Let's say that Sheila's application happens to be, a dynamic storage hog. So she might want to go and click on that and get information about, about how much DSA am I actually using at the moment. And you notice some of these fields are green or yellow or red, and what that means, and this is just sort of an aside, what that means is that Sherman has set up ahead of time, what the thresholds for these particular values should be. And the CICS list command knows that, and it colorizes it and says, hey, this is normal. Hey, this is normal. And if there were things that weren't normal, it would show up either yellow or red for warning and problem. So let me go to private. I'm going to click on private, and that gives me an idea of how much private area I have free, right? And that might be relevant for applications that still use a bunch of below-the-line storage. And then I can also go and click on transactions, and that gives me sort of a transaction-centric view of those particular regions. Again, only the regions that Sheila cares about. It also gives me an idea of how close I am to max tasks. Okay. Now, once I'm done digging around in here, and notice my system level overview is still up there, right? Once Sheila is done poking around here, she's going to either PF3 or, for me, right-click on the mouse, and I'm going to go back to my dashboard. Okay, and I can do the same thing for any of these. And remember, I can also click on the question mark to get help for the command. I really don't expect Sheila to do that, but I would expect her to, click on these tags and sort of launch these commands in context. Now, notice here, so I just double-clicked. I'm sorry, I did that without explaining. I double-clicked on the window tag for the CICS connections display. So I'm going to double-click on that, and it's going to bring me into a full-screen view of that. And then Sheila has an idea right now, oh, my 670 region isn't connected to DB2. That could be a problem, right? And it's set as red here, so there's probably a state entry that Sherman set up for Sheila that says, hey, it should be connected to DB2, right? And the other thing is I get like a metric and a description over here, so I get more information. And what I could have done if I were really smart, and I'm not really, but I could have shortened this window in the dashboard definition to only give her, just the status. And then if she really wanted this other info about, what queue you would have actually connected to, then she could have just, double-clicked here and gotten that information. It would have saved some real estate here on the dashboard. But anyway, you can be as creative as you want with this. What my overall goal of doing this webcast was to, number one, show you the CICS group functionality, and also show how one could, Sherman could really easily set up sort of a base or template dashboard, which he could make, as almost like a starting point to for a group-specific or application-specific or line of business-specific dashboard for all of the Sheila customers that he services on a daily basis. The whole point is that, the goal of here is to basically empower Sheila to give her more information and don't bombard her with information that she probably doesn't care about. She might recognize that, hey, I'm not connected to DB2, and maybe that's the reason why my overall thing is a problem, and she might know who to call to get that fixed. She might not necessarily have to call Sherman, because remember, one of the goals here is to reduce Sherman's workload. So we want Sherman to free him up so that he can do other things that he just simply doesn't have time for, and also to empower Sheila so that she can be more self-sufficient in terms of monitoring the applications that she cares about. So I think that's about all I have. So, you know, at this point, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to try and entertain them if I can.
I don't see any questions at the moment, but if anybody would like to ask any, you can use the Q&A box. The top-hand side of your screen, you'll be able to see it. Enter any questions you have there, and I'll be happy to direct them towards Greg.
All right. So, I mean, I'm willing to hang out here, but, you know, otherwise, you know, just say the word and we can give people back 20 or 22 minutes of their day. And as you said, this would be posted up on the website, right? Community?
Absolutely. Yes, and so, yeah, this is part of a Tech Talk series. These are all posted on the community site, and that's also a great forum if you do have questions on this. You can post them there, and, you know, Greg and the team can get back to you. And we can also host, you know, live chats to go into, you know, more in-depth collaborative conversation with other folks on this as well. So we invite you to come and take a look at some of the other Tech Talks you may have missed over the last few months, and look forward to seeing us do these type of things, you know, a few times a month to help address some of the common questions that we get and make sure that you're maximizing the use of the CA SYSVIEW capabilities. So great job. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Cindy.
So no questions have come in the meantime, but I guess we can call it right there if you guys are set.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good day.